ladies and gents, welcome to the Controlled Interest Gamecast, where we talk about video games and everything happening in the industry. E3 week. Today we're talking about EA, Bethesda, and Ubisoft. As always, I'm joined by Dom.
Hi everyone, I'd like to tell you about the Church of Jehovah. I'm just kidding.
Jordan, how's it going, Jordan?
I know it's been out for a minute, but I highly recommend everyone go see Alien Covenant.
And special returning guest, Blessing. How's it going, Blessing?
Yo, how's it going, man?
It's going good. Glad to have you back. It's been a while. Last time you were on, you talked about Persona, but you're always talking about Persona, so we don't know exactly how long ago that was. So basically the itinerary for today, we're going to be talking about the EA conference, and what we expect from this year, then going over predictions, and then doing the same thing for Bethesda and Ubisoft. We figured last year we did each one individually. We figured, it's too much work. We're just going to mash them all into one because that's easier. So I'm going to go over EA's conference. Feel free to jut in whenever you feel necessary. I'm just going to go over what they did last year, and then we can talk about what our expectations are for this year. So essentially, they started off with the Titanfall 2 single-player campaign. This was rumored for a bit. We didn't know if it was actually happening. Then they came out and started their show with it, showing off the single-player campaign. And then they decided to release it alongside Battlefield 1 and Call of Duty, and no one bought it, unfortunately. So that game was released. Then they came out next with Madden 17. Same old, really. Nothing new with Madden 17. The new features they always talk about and stuff like that, but nothing game-changing. Followed up by Mass Effect Andromeda. So they didn't actually even show any gameplay here. I think the first gameplay we saw was at the PlayStation, either PSX or the PlayStation Pro event. So we just saw concept art and stuff like that. And that game came out to mixed reception, obviously. It seems like it's a better game now after multiple patches. What's up next? So FIFA 17, they showed off that as well. They showed off the new single-player campaign. They had this this British actor come out on stage. And
don't know me, but you will.
Exactly. Kind of perplexing there, but it's cool to see sports games adding a little bit more content. NCAA football that EA used to release had a Road to Glory mode, which is kind of like a single-player mode. Madden's kind of had that with Road to Superstar, but it's nothing even close to a single-player campaign. So it's cool to see them take one of their sports franchises and inject it with a single-player campaign, because I think it's a really cool missing part of sports games.
It was absolutely fabulous, Jared. Just incredible.
Yeah, and that's actually another big piece of news, too, that since last year's E3, Peter Moore has left EA. He's no longer working with EA. He now is a manager for a European soccer club. So they have new leadership there as well.
Where publisher heads usually go.
Yeah, exactly.
The natural career jump, yeah.
Yeah. Next up, they had the EA Original segment where they talked about them publishing indie games from smaller people. We had... I need your guys' help on this one. What was the name of the yarn game with the little red yarn dude that they released?
Unraveled.
Unraveled.
Yarny.
Yarny.
Wasn't Yarny?
The Yarny was the character, but the game was Unraveled.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this was kind of jump-started this initiative, and then they actually made a name for it, which is EA Originals. They showed off Fee or Faye. I don't remember exactly how they pronounced it. Fee.
They said Fee.
Really interesting-looking games. That game still has no release date, which is weird that these big publishers have these indie games that are kind of not meeting deadlines. And I mean, the publishers have no control over it. Well, they do have control over it, but like they don't have in-house development, right? They're kind of like,
that's what I was going to ask. Are they developing that first party? I thought they were.
No, it's a French studio or a European studio that they're like, we'll publish it for you. Same thing with Unraveled. It was an independent developer.
So this isn't a UbiArt situation?
No, not even close. And then next up, they talked about the new Battlefront, which we didn't know was going to be Battlefront 2, but we kind of insinuated it was. They talked about the future Battlefront, yada, yada, yada. Then we saw a glimpse at Visceral Star Wars game with Amy Hennig, where we kind of saw that guy walk out into like this desert-filled Star Wars planet, and that's pretty much all we saw. And then we saw Respawn playing with mocap with a bunch of lightsabers for their Star Wars game. And then they capped off the show with Battlefield 1, which was their big return to, people are getting tired of these modern-day shooters, so they returned to World War I. And then they eventually had the beta that led into the release of Battlefield 1. Pretty good year. Out of everything that they showed off, there was... it was half and half, really, about what they released and what didn't release. Fee, I still don't know how to pronounce it. You said it earlier, and I still messed it up. Yeah, that has no release date. Battlefront 2 comes out later this year, so it didn't release. Visceral and Respawn, we have no idea when those games are coming. And but Battlefield 1, Titanfall 2, Madden 17, FIFA, and Andromeda all came out. I have a couple of questions for you guys in regards to what we expect this year, and then we can kind of bounce off of that. So, are we going to see the Star Wars games, the Visceral and Respawn? Are we seeing more of those? Are they getting their unveiling, their grand unveiling?
One of them.
Yes.
I think the Respawn game is they just announced that last year, right?
No, I don't think so. I think that we knew
I'm
in the
pretty
pipeline.
sure they just announced that they were working on it last year.
Yeah, I think that's newer.
Well, no, we
Yeah.
knew from the announcement with EA, we knew that Visceral, Respawn were working on a Star Wars game, and DICE. Last year was the first time they showed them working on the Star Wars game. We knew they were going to be working on it, but we didn't know that they were going to work on it before they finished Titanfall 2. So them showing them playing with the lightsabers was our first indication that they're currently working on it simultaneously as they're working on Star Wars.
Right. So regardless, it just goes to show that I don't think they're very far into development there. I mean, maybe we'll get a CG trailer for the Respawn game, but I think it is fucking time for that Amy Hennig game to be rolling up to our doorstep.
Yeah,
I agree.
It's.
I think we'll get a review for that one.
Yeah, I think that they've kind of messed that up because this whole like guy walking out of Mos Eisley Cantina is not that exciting, and I feel like the industry as a whole is just giving them a lot of leeway with that specific project because Amy Hennig has this pedigree of writing such great stories in video games. So I think that's only going to stretch so far, and it's getting to the point where they need to unveil it for real.
Do you guys think that? I mean, with Battlefront coming out this year, I doubt they'd release two major Star Wars games in the same year. So do you think they unveil Visceral's game? They're like, oh, here it is, but it's coming out like next year. Do you think that's going to happen? Yeah.
That sounds on point.
Yeah, it's interesting. Do you think it'll have a multiplayer component, considering Battlefront's like the Star Wars multiplayer game, or do you think this is going to be single player focused?
I would
think
say
it'll be
single player
focused.
Yeah, like because I think when you think of Star Wars and you think of it in the gaming space, like I think Disney / Star Wars has like such a good grasp of how to diversify what they have, and so like Battlefront has the multiplayer space covered, and I think the thing that kind of sucks but maybe is a positive for Battlefront is that the first game didn't really have like a core single player campaign mode, but like a lot of people complain about that, but I think that was their plan, was that like, okay, we'll have this take up the space for multiplayer, then we'll have another game take up the space for single player, but this next Battlefront 2 game is going to have a single player mode, but I don't think that'll stop like I don't think that'll affect the Visceral game at all. Like I think that'll still be like the game that you go to for a Star Wars single player experience.
Yeah, I think the Respawn one may have a multiplayer component later on, right? But yeah, I'm with you. I think the Visceral game is going to be pretty much just solo stuff.
Yeah.
See, that's playing to their strengths though, because Respawn is clearly geared towards multiplayer with their Call of Duty and Titanfall pedigree, and then obviously Amy Hennig writing single player stories. That's where their focus is going to be, I think.
And then, I mean, the interesting thing too is going to be where they choose to release this next year, right? Are they going to go for the normal fall slot? And then with single player, do you think the Battlefront 2 story is taking place in stuff that's already canon, right? It's taking place in events we already know. Do you think the Visceral and or Respawn games are going to be they're going to be canon, but do you think they're going to be stories in places we haven't seen before? Or do you think they're going to be familiar? Like, when do you think they're going to take place in the timeline overall?
I think they're going to be old trilogy because I just don't think you want to put a bunch of games out right now that are prequel trilogy focused. Like I just don't think that's going to do as well as if you're playing to the nostalgia of the old trilogy and maybe pushing into Force Awakens territory. But the shot of the guy walking out of Mos Eisley is like clearly that's the vibe from old trilogy, because Mos Eisley isn't in the prequel trilogy. So I think it's certainly not going to be like Old Republic or anything like that. So I'd say original trilogy.
Okay.
I'd say like to bounce. sorry, to like bounce off that, I think they won't. I don't think they'll touch the prequel trilogy because like with the new movies, I think the whole idea that they have is that they want to market the new movies based off of the success of the older movies, and they want to invoke the feeling of the older movies. And so I could see it being another game's like add to like the stretch between maybe the old trilogy and the new trilogy. I could see it being in between like 6 and 7 or something like that, or maybe even like fully in the new trilogy or fully in the old trilogy.
Yeah. So the last question I want to leave here with EA before we get into our predictions is, do you think we're going to see the new IP? We've heard about this new IP, clean sheet design, all of these weird, buzzwords. They stated that it's not coming out this year. It's already been delayed to the fiscal year of 2018 or 2019.
You're talking about BioWare's new IP?
Yes, BioWare's new IP. Do you think we're going to see it? So the interesting thing is we've already seen kind of this backlash for EA with them showing just concept art. They did it for the Star Wars games. They did it for Mass Effect. It's going to be... So if they learn from this, do you think they're going to show off the new IP and show off gameplay? Or do you think they're just going to go quiet on it until they can show gameplay? Or do you think they're going to make the same mistake and show concept art for this new IP? Like, what do you think the position they're going to take with this as far as showing it off?
I'm thinking some real generic dev diary interview kind of crap that does
classic EA.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I think
what everybody loves.
Yeah, that's what I'm expecting. Not maybe we get a glimpse into like this setting, and maybe a tiny bit of something what the gameplay will be like, but otherwise I don't think a title or anything. Just some garbage that, some generic, PR dev speak about immersion or disruption.
Clearly, EA hasn't learned from watching Microsoft and Sony's awesome conferences these last few years, and they don't get that we don't want to fucking see dev diaries at E3 when we could watch that shit on YouTube any fucking day. So I think that they're going to continue with that, unfortunately. However, with this new IP specifically, I'm not quite sure because obviously they've had a lot of backlash. BioWare has with Mass Effect, and then they just seemingly delayed this new game coming out. So if you had asked me a while back, I might have said differently, but I think they might be pulling the reins back, BioWare specifically.
And there's like an opposite... Sorry, go ahead, Lessing.
I was going to say, I think we'll see it because I think they want to get away from Mass Effect, seeing as how that was not received well by like anyone. And I think we will see... I would assume we would see like a trailer. I think Don was on point with like, I think we'll see something, even if it's not like a full reveal, even if we don't get a name, there'll at least be like some kind of footage, maybe like images or like concept or whatever, because that's what EA likes to do, even though like nobody likes it. But I don't think that... I agree with you guys in the fact that I don't think that they learned that well from it.
Something that we haven't mentioned is the fact that Mass Effect's got to be getting DLC at some point. Whether or not it was a good game. It was a good game, but I mean, they mentioned before the game came out that there were going to be expansion packs, and so I feel like this would probably be the time. Maybe they could just push Mass Effect into a new positive light with these, if they really nail these expansions and have updates coming out alongside that even improve further what they've already been working on. And then that way, by the time later on this year or maybe early next year that they're ready to unveil this new IP, then they don't have this negative spotlight on them.
Well, and that could be a good if they do the Mass Effect Andromeda DLC at the end, that sets up a very good and one more thing, and they can show off just a brief teaser of the new IP. We don't even know what it is. They don't need to show concept art. If they learn, like, we don't even need a gameplay trailer. They could just show a short cinematic, end the conference that way, and leave us guessing, right? Hopefully they learned, like we said, they haven't in the past. I just want a one-word answer for you guys for this, and then I want to move on to predictions. Will an athlete come out on stage?
Yes.
Absolutely. Wait. Athlete is in the guy that came out last year. He wasn't an athlete. He was an actor.
Well, you can take it either way. An actor or a real athlete. Somebody portraying an athlete or an actual athlete. Either way.
Yeah.
Counts.
Yeah. Well, Pele 2 years ago, and then this guy last year. I think the answer is yes.
And Madden's getting a single player this year, so there might be some dude come out in a full football gear.
Actually, I said Steph Curry earlier. I take that back. Clint Dempsey.
Okay.
That's all I'm going to say.
I don't know
if Tom Brady comes on stage, I'm turning off the conference. What?
Real quick, could we take guesses at what we think this new IP is?
Yeah. I'll throw mine out first because I think I don't have much to say. I think it's a hero shooter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's a superhero game.
Okay.
Licensed?
No, totally like Infamous unlicensed. They create their own superhero.
Okay.
Or I think it's going to be like Mass Effect where you create your own superhero.
I got nothing. I think hero shooter is on point, but I wouldn't know since they have both the fantasy and the sci-fi settings down with Mass Effect and Dragon Age, and so I have no idea.
I'm combining a superhero shooter.
Ooh, I'd be down.
Yeah, like a Overwatch-ish.
Like a bunch of Punishers going after each other.
Ooh, post-apocalyptic would be interesting. Them competing with Bethesda.
Yeah. That's my answer. Yeah.
So I think Jordan's close because they've said action game several times about it, and that's about it. So I think something more actiony and less, RPG.
Well, and then the interesting thing too is Marvel's talked about wanting the video game realm to create their own stories, their own narrative, their own universe, and they actually talked about how eventually Marvel wants the video game space to create new superheroes for Marvel. Like they're super down with entrusting them to create new brands for Marvel. So imagine if they create a new superhero for Marvel. That'd be crazy.
Yeah, I mean this is DC, but Harley Quinn was created in Batman the Animated Series and then came into the comics. So that'd be so fucking dope if it's like, oh, this superhero came from a video game originally.
Well, and it's interesting, Bill Roseman, the guy who controls Marvel Games, he talked about how the old way of Marvel doing things is they viewed video games as a way to license their stuff, right? We saw that obviously. But now they've seen how fast video games grow and they see the dollar signs, more importantly. And from a creative aspect, he said that now they see it as a third pillar. So they see it as a place where they can actually, like the Harley Quinn situation, where they're fine with them creating their own narratives and not having to play on other things and giving it to people they entrust to create great things. And somebody asked him, like, well, what do you think about them creating new superheroes in the Marvel Universe? And he's like, that's one of our goals, is we want these developers and designers to create new characters that stand alone in the video game realm. I think that's cool.
Music to my fucking ears.
Really quick, we're going a little long on EA. Let's get into our predictions. Blessing, you have the choice since you're the guest. Would you like to go first or last?
I can go first. Why not? I think at a certain point, a Burnout successor will be revealed. I think, and the reason why I think this is because, well, one, we got those like dumb dev diaries kind of thing with like the footage of like this off-road like multi-vehicle game that they just
where you at, Criterion?
Where's Criterion? Because like they make some of the best racing games, and also like we haven't seen a Need for Speed game in what feels like too long, which is weird for me to say because there's a certain point where I felt like we're getting too many. And so I think
it'll definitely be there. They've already talked about that.
Oh, yeah, I guess they have. I think I forgot that they talked about that. But like either I guess either Need for Speed or a Criterion racing game or both like has to be there.
See, that's my thing is Burnout might as well just be fucking dead because EA realized, oh, we've got two of the biggest arcade racing franchises and we're cannibalizing our own sales. So let's pick the bigger one. Then we'll move Criterion from Burnout over to Need for Speed Most Wanted. And then that basically worked out really well for them, it seems like. And so, you've got former Criterion devs just in May released... do you guys know what that game's called? Where it's just like Dangerous basically
Golf? Something it's Fallout like just or Crash Out or Burn.
Yeah, it's like it's
Danger Zone?
Only the crash mode from Burnout essentially, and so even Zone. They've moved on. They've moved on, and of course there's a lot of former Criterion developers that branched off to make Ghost. Ghost is the one that now makes the Need for Speed game. So it's looking less and less likely that Burnout will ever return, especially since Criterion is seemingly working on this, ATV off-road deal with the buggies and such. So it is time for Criterion to reveal their game, no doubt. But I'm just really sad to say I don't think it will be Burnout.
Jordan, what's your prediction?
So, we've actually talked about all of mine, even my backups. So go to Dom real quick, and I'll have a new one for you.
Okay.
All right. So I got I got FIFA being shown, the version of FIFA specifically for the Switch being shown at E3 show. And the reason I think this is worth of a prediction is I don't think Nintendo shows it at theirs, right? Like they did at the Switch presentation. I think they kind of go on the aggressive side and get this shown at EA's. And on top of that, I'll say it's not FIFA 18. I think it gets its own name, right? Like FIFA Switch edition, something like that, which people are going to be fussy about. But
that works hand in hand with the athlete coming out, and then whoever's running EA playing it on stage with the athlete, like they each have a Joy-Con and they're playing FIFA. Oh god!
and then they show something cheesy like that same athlete, like a trailer of him playing Switch FIFA in the locker room and then running out onto the field after,
holding the Switch, like running out onto the field, still playing,
just tossing it as he's that's amazing.
Okay, so Jordan, did anything come to you?
Oh, I got you, man. So this is actually kind of in line with Dom's. I think that EA is clearly going to see the success that Nintendo's having with the Switch.
Exactly.
And so they're going to go hard on that, even if they don't have a ton of stuff ready to go. I just think they're going to give you a general vibe of, hey, we're coming. We're going to be on the Switch. We're going to support it. We're going to be there with the games. And so I think part of a big part of that is going to be that they are going to open up EA Access and put it on more platforms. And I think it'll be on Switch and PlayStation 4 by the end of the year.
Interesting. Bold. I guess I'm going to up you with boldness. So BioWare has multiple teams. They obviously have the smaller team, the rookie team working on Andromeda. They have their A team working on this new IP. But they also have like BioWare Austin and a couple other teams. I think it's time, boys. I think we're getting a new Dragon Age. It's been 3 years since Inquisition. I think this kind of lends its hand to what Blessing stated earlier of BioWare kind of wanting to not necessarily separate from Mass Effect Andromeda, but they definitely want to earn some good graces with gamers as soon as possible. And if they have their other IP delayed and they might not want to show too much of it, right, or they don't have too much ready, I think a good way of getting in the good graces again is showing off a new Dragon Age game. Dragon Age Inquisition was a good game, one good game of the year for quite a bit of outlets. It was mixed, though. Some people didn't really like it. But I do think it's been enough time. It was 2 years between Dragon Age and Dragon Age 2, and then 3 years between Dragon Age 2 and Dragon Age Inquisition. It's going to be 3 years now since Inquisition, so even if it's coming out next year, I could definitely see us getting some kind of preview of it. Dragon Age is a series that hits, a market that EA hasn't released a game for since Inquisition. They don't have any other fantasy games really, so I think we definitely see Dragon Age this year. That's my prediction, and I think it comes out before December of next year. It'll release before December 2018.
So what I want to discuss here is I've been thinking really hard about this, Jared, because I'm big fan of BioWare, big fan of Mass Effect and Dragon Age, and I've been thinking the original plan was for Mass Effect to be out last year, right? And so I was thinking EA's probably thinking Mass Effect in 16, and then the new IP either late 17, early 18, and then maybe late 18, early 19 we get Dragon Age. But everything's clearly been jumbled up, and I don't think that's messed with the Dragon Age development,
Yeah.
So I think that Dragon Age has probably just been on schedule this whole time, and it's just going to be ready when it's ready. So you may be totally right.
Yeah, because like Dragon Age has a huge audience, but they're not as vocal or as, Dragon Age didn't suffer the Mass Effect 3 ending controversy, right? So they haven't had to deal with any of that stuff. Though Dragon Age Inquisition was mixed for the most part, it did win Game of the Year. Like, it was a very solid game, and it's one of those games that can benefit from just incubating and then announcing it when it's ready, right? So yeah, that's my prediction. New Dragon Age. Let's move on though. We're gonna move on to Bethesda. They had a good conference. Not as many announcements, so we'll go through those. It's the same thing, same rigmarole. They start off with Quake Champions, which is their new hero shooter. No release date yet. It's been in beta this whole time, so we could definitely see a release date for that. Interesting that they went PC exclusive. Kind of makes sense. I don't really know any people that are on console that love Quake. I think you only earn more cred by going PC exclusive, and I think it's huge for them. I think they kind of weighed their options, and they realized that it wouldn't be they could focus on making a great game for PC instead of worrying about porting it to other places. And I don't think people would be too mad about it not coming to console, right? So I think that was a smart decision. Next up, Elder Scrolls Legends. They talked about it, and then it eventually released. It's their second mobile game they've kind of dove into. It seems like it's having decent success as far as sales through microtransactions. Their first one was Fallout Shelter, which they also talked about during their show, the PC port of that. And then next up was the Fallout 4 DLC, which included Nuka World, the robot building DLC, and a couple of others. Those came out. People enjoyed that DLC. Kind of made up for the lackluster parts of Fallout 4. Then the Skyrim Special Edition was shown off, the remaster of Skyrim, which came out to all current platforms. And then they showed off Prey, which recently came out over the last month. And then I already talked about Fallout Shelter. They had the Doom DLC, which also came out. They showed off Doom in VR, and then they also announced that Fallout 4 in VR is coming in 2017. Oculus exclusive, I believe, right, Dom?
Well,
we'll
talk about that later.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah.
And then lastly, they closed out the show with Dishonored 2, which also came out. So they actually had a really good track record of literally everything they talked about came out except for Quake Champions and Fallout 4 VR. Everything released. So once again, I have a couple of questions for you guys of what you guys anticipate and stuff like that. My first question for you guys is, will we see Skyrim on Switch at Bethesda conference?
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah. I'm gonna say yes.
I either at Bethesda or at Nintendo, one of the two. But
I think both. I think you'll see it at both.
Maybe both. Yeah.
Small little prediction here or bet with you guys. Really quick question. We can move on. One word answer. Is it going to be the remaster or is it going to be the OG? Just say OG or remaster. What do you guys think it's going to be?
A new one.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a third version because they're going to take the special edition and downgrade it.
Okay. Interesting.
I agree.
And they're not going to be able to call it the special edition for that specific reason.
It's going to be Skyrim Switch or whatever. Yeah.
And by the way, when I say I think it'll be at Nintendo and Bethesda, I think it'll be at Nintendo's Treehouse, but not in their Direct.
Okay. Next question for you guys, and this isn't a one-word answer. Obviously, you guys can talk about it. We've seen Elder Scrolls Legends. We've seen Fallout Shelter. Will we see a new mobile game this year from Bethesda?
No.
I'm gonna say yeah. I think it'll be based off of either. Well, I think it'll be based off of a new IP that they announce at the conference. That's my assumption. Maybe not a new IP, but a new game that they announced at the conference.
Okay.
But I think we'll see one.
So I'm saying no, just because Elder Scrolls Legends did release on PC and just recently on iPad, but not yet on iPhone or Android at all, unless it's already happened since I last read that. But I think they show more of Elder Scrolls Legends.
So you think that's going to be their mobile thing? Is like it's coming to iOS and Android finally?
Sure. But I also don't think they're done with mobile games, and they probably will make another one eventually.
Do you think they'd go like Fallout Shelter 2?
No, because they just brought that to PC, didn't they? And they're still
in the last year
a lot of updates.
Just throwing stuff out there for you guys.
Yeah, I think no, because I think Bethesda. I feel like at this point is a lot smarter than EA. Knows the gaming populace a lot better, and so they know that they've had Fallout Shelter, they've had Elder Scrolls, and I don't think they're going to want to keep shoving mobile down hardcore gamers' throats. I feel like they got their biggest franchises that needed mobile games out there, and so I think they'll lay off, hopefully.
Okay, so let's get this out of the way because people like to hear this, and I think it's an easy answer. The pie in the sky that everyone dreams for Bethesda is they do a Fallout 4, but for Elder Scrolls. Do you guys think we're seeing it? I'm a hard no. I don't think there's a chance in how we see that game this year.
Nope.
No, that's far.
Wait,
that's
you're
very
talking
far
about
away.
Elder Scrolls 6?
Yeah,
I think,
the Elder Scrolls series. Yeah, the next one.
Yeah.
Oh wait, are you talking about like? Wait, can you say that again? Because I was thinking you meant like online, like a Fallout online. Or something.
Oh no. I'm saying, is there a chance that we see the next entry after Skyrim, Elder Scrolls 6?
Yeah. Oh, no.
I think so. Well, no. Wait, hold on, Dom. You're gonna have to help me here about the timeline with Fallout, because it is Bethesda Studios. They switch between the two games. Yeah, exactly. And so they're not working on both.
Skyrim came out in 2011, like 11/11/11, then Fallout 4 came out in 2015.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then they did DLC all last year. I think so. They had like 2 sets of DLC, right? They had like 2 seasons almost. And so I think that once they got onto the second season, they just had a smaller group working on that, and the rest of them were on Elder Scrolls. But it still might be a year too early. Man, I don't know. That's tough. I think they like to take their time. It won't be there this year.
My biggest thing is, I think that, and I don't think either of these things are happening. Let me just preface by saying that. But I think we're more likely to see a Fallout New Vegas for Fallout 4 type thing than we are to see the next Elder Scrolls major.
And totally forgot about that. It's like Fallout New Orleans, right?
Yeah. Is the rumor.
And then also remember, they didn't even say or officially confirm Fallout 4 until 6 months before it released, right?
Exactly.
So I think they might follow that same model with Elder Scrolls 6, where they're not going to talk about it until it's
really
about done, and we'll get the rumors and stuff like we do with Fallout 4 beforehand too.
We'll see. I don't think we'll get the same rumors because they're not going to be at the Skyrim College taking pictures or whatever, like they were with Boston College and Fallout. They can't. They're not. Those things don't exist in our world, so we're not going to catch them in the act, I guess.
Really quick too, we didn't really touch on the Wolfenstein before the show or Evil Within 2 possibly, and the reason I did that is because that might be some people's predictions, so we're not really going to talk about those. But the next thing I want to talk about before we go into predictions is when Bethesda announced their conference, they did it calling their conference Bethesda Land, and they showed a picture of a theme park that's Bethesda inspired. They had Doom in there, they had Fallout, they had Elder Scrolls, they had all of the franchises you'd expect. Two of the sections of the theme park were under construction. And one of the interesting things is one of the sections just said under construction, nothing there, just a bunch of construction equipment. But the other one I thought was very interesting. When people design these things, especially with art, like it looks like hand-drawn art, right? From one of their in-house artists, they know what they're doing, and they put little Easter eggs in there for a purpose, for the most part. Obviously, there could be some red herrings. But on the other one, the one that just doesn't say under construction, it says "Pardon our dust," and it also says "coming soon." So the fact that that thing has both of those things leads me to that it's obviously coming soon means it's a game that's going to be releasing pretty soon. Also, "Pardon our dust," that makes me feel like it's a franchise that they're gonna bring back, a franchise that hasn't been around before, and that's what got me.
Oh,
yeah, "Pardon our dust," like they're dusting it off, right?
Yeah, like which. An archaeological dig,
which is interesting because a lot of I did some research and I went to Bethesda and I looked at all of the game properties they owned or they published, right? And I was looking at a lot of them, and a lot of them they're very good at upkeeping, right? Obviously the Elder Scrolls, Fallout, all of these things that Doom, Wolfenstein, Evil Within, those aren't really old. But I'm gonna go straight into predictions real quick because I want to give you guys my prediction. They had a series that came out. The last entry that came out was in 2001 called Magic and Mayhem. And it looked like it was pretty interesting and pretty good for the time, right? They haven't touched it since. So what Magic and Mayhem is it's actually a RTS game. It looked a lot like what you would imagine a very early Diablo-esque game would look like. Now, the interesting thing is it was also referred to as Duels Magic or something like that, which whenever you think of Duels, you think of a card game. So for my prediction, I think that we're getting a Magic and Mayhem reboot. I think it has enough of a name. It's a little generic, but it has enough of a name that can sell. So if you name a game Magic and Mayhem, here's the thing with my prediction though. I don't know, and I don't know if I'm going to commit to either one, but I think they're going to reboot Magic and Mayhem, and it could possibly be mobile. It didn't seem like a very overly complicated game, and I think Magic and Mayhem lends itself to being a mobile game more than a console or PC game, right? I think Magic and Mayhem sounds like, oh, I was playing Magic and Mayhem. It sounds like a mobile game. And the way the game seemed, it was an RTS. It was Magic based. You kind of don't want that being another big release because you kind of don't want it getting in the way of people being hyped for Elder Scrolls, right? So I could definitely see them rebooting it and making it a mobile game. And I think it's a game that it's not going to take a lot of investment from them, or it's not going to be a high risk option, but it could definitely pay dividends as far as the mobile market. Like, we've seen that even if you have a big name franchise, it doesn't necessarily translate to making money on mobile. So I think they're willing to take the risk with the success of Fallout Shelter and Elder Scrolls Legends to reboot this dead franchise and try to get something out of it. And I don't know if it's just going to be one of those throw-ins in the show, or they're actually going to delve into it. But that's my prediction, is I think we're going to see Magic and Mayhem come back. I could be reading too much into
one if I do say so myself.
Yeah.
Dude, I totally thought you were going to say IHRA Racing for
God.
PS1. I thought you were going to say that they were going to bring that back. And if you did, I would have started clapping for you, because that would have been like the most like bold prediction I ever heard.
God, Jesus. I went a little bold, but I mean, it just Magic and Mayhem is a series that not any of us are familiar with. And I was looking at it, and they made multiple games in the series. And the thing that they put Part in Our Dust, and they made sure to put that on one of the two things. I may be reading too much into it, but that's what we do here. So that was my prediction.
I like that, Jared. That's very cunning of you.
Yeah. And what's your guys'? Who wants to go first, or go next, rather?
I'll go first so that no one can take my predictions.
Oh, God. Good point.
So I think that I was bouncing back and forth on this one, and it's obviously very close to the release of Prey, but I do think that we're going to get a teaser for an expansion pack there.
Oh, good call.
I don't think they've said anything about Prey DLC. There's no season pass or anything like that. So what I think we're going to get, there's no multiplayer in the game. I think there's going to be Prey, and there's going to be the Prey expansion, like just one fat DLC pack. There's not going to be all these challenge rooms and survivor maps and all that crap. It's just going to be one big expansion. And I think that Prey's obviously doing fine. I think I don't know how it's selling, but I think the critical reception has been good enough to where it's going to warrant a DLC and probably even a sequel.
That's a good call, though, because last year we had Doom come out. We had no idea of DLC, and then at E3 they had the thing talking about all the Doom DLC. So I think you're golden with this. I think it's a really smart prediction.
Exactly, because like I said, it is right after the release of Prey, but I think these publishers are really starting to realize when it comes to DLC, you need to get it while it's hot. Like, people, this is not that long of a game. I mean, it's longer than most story-based first-person shooters would be, but it's certainly not a Persona 5 that's going to take you 80 hours or so. So I think that people will be finishing up Prey around E3, and they'll be hungry for DLC, and I think Bethesda is smart enough to capitalize on that.
Yeah, I think it's a good call. I think it's a very good call to anticipate that, because they've already shown that. They did that with Doom, and it's like Prey released kind of in the same time slot as Doom, and they showed off DLC last year. So I think it's really smart. And I think, I mean, with all of the issues it's had at release, I don't think they're going to do this, because Bethesda's not that type of company, but I would think it'd be pretty cool if they announced the DLC, the major expansion, but then they threw in some little pieces of DLC that are like free. I think would be cool, like maybe a cosmetic change or something. I think that'd be pretty cool to throw in a little something for free, just for the issues that Prey had. I think that'd be cool. You were trying to jump in too, Dom. What's your prediction before Jordan?
Sorry, Dom.
Make sure to rush in.
So what I'm thinking is we get a big heaping helping of Wolfenstein trailer. Whatever they end up calling the new one, right? Was it Colossus or something like that?
Was it Old Colossus?
New Colossus?
New Colossus. Yeah, New Colossus. That makes sense, because New Order. Yeah.
Something. Either way, I think we get a release year of 2018 for that game, and that's it. Nothing more specific. I think the assumption for most people is that's going to be a fall game this year. I think that's getting pushed.
No, I think that's spring next year. Doom hit it, Prey hit it. That'd be perfect for Wolfenstein 2.
I don't know, man. I think that's their see in 6 months game, like Fallout.
See, I think it's just not big enough, and they looked at the numbers from Dishonored 2, which released in November, and they're thinking, well, maybe it's all right if we give them an extra couple months to work on this,
very
let
smart,
it come out in the
very
spring.
Smart.
So that's where I'm going with.
Also,
it'll be great, by the way.
You see how shooters do compete against the likes of any EA shooter and Call of Duty. So it's like, let's just move to the spring.
You got Destiny coming out in September, so that earlier slot is kind of looking iffier too, if that's what you're going for.
Exactly. And Blessing, close us out with these Bethesda predictions.
Nice. So you guys are already covered like most of my predictions. I have one left, which is Tango Gameworks, who are the guys who did Evil Within.
Of course.
They'll reveal their new game, and I don't think it'll be Evil Within 2.
Ooh, wow.
I think it'll be a new IP. I think it'll be focused on action, and it'll be like a very gory kind of theme, because that's what what's his name? Is it Shinji Megami? Is that who it is? I probably butchered
Mikami.
that. Mikami. because he's of course like the guy behind Resident Evil 4, and like that's a very gory game, so I think it'll continue with the gore, but I think it'll be a Bloodborne Dark Souls like game.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So RPG-ish?
Interesting.
Yes.
So
because that's like the hotness right now.
Question for you.
Yo.
Adding to your thing, Halloween is a Tuesday this year. Is it coming out on Halloween?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah, I'll say so.
Just
so,
finish.
yes.
Just let it all out. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I think that's close, but I feel like the Tango Gameworks was started for Mikami to make the games that he wanted, the survival game, horror games that he wanted, and I feel like Evil Within was enough of a breakout success to warrant a sequel. And since I just don't think he's going to want to do 2 new IPs back to back, also after starting a brand new studio, so I feel like he's just going to stay on the Evil Within path.
Well, more than that, the Bethesda probably, that would be a hard sell to them because they want to, keep the name the same because that's money, right?
Right.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
What if Bethesda stated as a publisher that they have, and Bethesda Studios proper too, that they have multiple projects? What if Blessing's half right, and it's not Tango Gameworks necessarily does like a Souls-esque game, but it is Bethesda does come out with a Souls-esque game because that is the hotness right now. That'd be interesting.
I do like that.
Yeah.
I definitely think we're going to see these big publishers releasing more of the... I don't think you'll see Souls-type games because of how slow it is. That's not going to sell well. I think you're going to see the Bloodborne types where it's fast action, RPG elements, and, maybe tough as nails.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like Neo, or like something that's more...
Right. We're going to get a bunch more Neos.
Yeah.
Also, I think with that, and I'm not dissing Bloodborne by any means, it's a fantastic game, but I think too, as far as translating it for people to be able to develop a Souls-like game and not be familiar with that type of game in development, I think it's easier to develop Bloodborne than it is Dark Souls because there's a lot more leeway with faster combat than slower combat, because with slower combat you have to be a lot more precise, right? A lot more pixel perfect. And I think being a little bit quicker...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not as they're, neither of them are mainstream, but Bloodborne would be the more mainstream of the two.
Next up, let's get into Ubisoft. Those are our predictions for Bethesda. We're going to run down real quick, and then we'll go through our predictions and what we expect, as always. So they started off with Just Dance, the big surprise no one saw coming. Just Dance 2017. That came out. Then it got announced for Switch, obviously. Next up, they showed off...
First game ever announced for Switch, wasn't it?
Yeah. They talked about it.
Or confirmed, I should say.
Yeah, Dragon Age. Not Dragon Age.
Sonic.
Dragon Quest.
Well, no, Just Dance was the first one because they didn't even call it the Switch. It was at their press conference last year, and they said coming to NX.
Said NX.
Yeah.
And then, Blessing had the Sonic thing where Sega just put NX at the bottom of the commercial.
Yeah. Next up, they had Ghost Recon Wildlands, which, if you didn't know, is the top-selling game so far this year, which is crazy, but a lot of people forget that The Division was one of the best-selling games last year, so they know how to make games sell. That game came out as well, to mixed reviews. I enjoyed it. I think Jordan enjoyed it as well. The next up on the list was a game that was supposed to come out during the last year, between last E3 and this E3, South Park Fractured But Whole. It got delayed, and then it got delayed again. We finally have a release date, October 17th. I think this is great for people. Don't wait on it because it might get delayed again.
Don't hold your breath, kids.
They're perfectionists. And though I'm not a huge fan of South Park, I admire Parker and Stone for not wanting to release something that doesn't feel authentic. And I think that they're willing to just keep delaying it and making sure it's a good game, right? Stick of Truth was a phenomenal game. People loved it. So I think they're willing to rather have a game come out that's true to South Park than to meet the gaming demands, right? So I do admire them for that, but it needs to come out. It's been delayed a couple of times. And it looks really interesting. It looks cool. The first one played on fantasy tropes. This one's playing on the superhero genre. And all the jokes in there are super funny. Making light of, like, the Black Panther coming so late and, like, superhero movies with females and stuff. It's really funny stuff. Social commentary. Next up, we had the Division DLC expansion that came out. Like I said before, Division was one of the best-selling games last year. People tend to forget that, as we're seeing with Wildlands. These, like, multiplayer-esque based shooters for Ubisoft are selling like crazy. Next up, they had their VR segment where they talked about Eagle Flight, which is a VR game where you played as an eagle. I think that went on a little too long. You kept hearing the caw of the eagle, and it was really annoying, in my opinion. Next up, they had Star Trek Bridge Crew, which is a VR game that looked like it was made in 1995. It looked really rough. It looked cool for people, fans of Star Trek, but man, that game looked rough. Even for a VR game, the game looked rough.
It would have blown our minds as like 5-year-olds.
Yeah, exactly.
Back in the 90s.
And that game came out at the end of May, so both those VR games released. Next up, For Honor, which is actually the second best-selling game of the year. Third was Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So Ubisoft has two of the best-selling games so far this year. For Honor came out to pretty decent reviews. It seems like the online community hasn't really stayed with it, which is hit or miss with online major online games, right? Multiplayer focus is if that community doesn't stay, then your game's kind of dead in the water. But they're kind of doing a new thing with Season 2 coming up here for E3, so it's going to be interesting to see how much legs that game has, considering how well Ubisoft has done with Rainbow Six Siege and that post-release support. That game's a completely different game than when it released, and it has crazy amounts of support and a player base that's very fervent for that game. Next up,
I know I'm pumped for the sequel for Aslan.
Next up, we had a sequel to a game that I don't think anybody anticipated a sequel to, kind of like when we got the NAC 2 reveal for PlayStation. Grow Up, which is a sequel to Grow Home, which is the game with the little red robot. It was actually teased in The Division. There's a room in The Division, or a couple of rooms that are bases, and it's supposed to kind of look like a Ubisoft dev office, and you see the Grow Home posters. So that was pretty interesting. That game came out as well. Next up, Trials of the Blood Dragon. I wouldn't consider this necessarily a new Trials game. It was more of a DLC or a spin-off. It was the Red Lynx guys made a Trials game influenced and inspired and merged with Far Cry 3's Blood Dragon DLC, so it was very neon, very 80s, very action. So that they talked about that came out. Then they talked about Watch Dogs 2, that obviously came out. And then they finished off with a new IP that we didn't even know about, which was a weird thing to end on, but it actually came out to decent reviews, which was Steep. Their snowboarding, snow-driven action game. So really quick before we hop into the open conversation, they showed off 11 games. 10 of them released. The only one that wasn't released was South Park, and that was delayed. So if we're going off of initial release dates, all 11 would have released, right? Which is pretty impressive for Ubisoft. They're not one of those publishers that you assume that for their conference they just announce everything that's going to be coming out. You assume that they're one of those publishers that's going to announce something that's not out for a couple of years. So I think last year they did a really good job of announcing things and getting them to people as soon as possible. And then out of all of the things that they announced, out of the 11 games they showed, 6 of them were new, meaning we had never heard about them, didn't know they existed, and 5 of them were known, meaning that we knew about the game going in, or there were leaks leading up to the conference that we already knew about. So before we hop into the open conversation real quick, a couple of weeks before E3, maybe about a month or so, there was this story that Ubisoft announced that The Crew 2, Far Cry 5, Assassin's Creed Origins, and South Park Fractured But Whole are all coming in the next year. So those are 4 games we kind of know about going in. I want to know what you guys anticipate seeing from Ubisoft. Are we seeing Origins? Where's Far Cry 5 taking place? Like, I just want to know your guys' thoughts on where Ubisoft's going to take their conference.
I think it's a lock that both Matt Stone and Trey Parker make an appearance and sit on a couch and talk for a while.
Are they going to make a joke?
Do that after they just delayed the fuck out of this game so many times? I mean, to be fair
why.
about the first South Park got delayed so many times because it was changing publishers. This one doesn't have that benefit.
Yeah, I think they'll make a joke about it just because they're Matt and Trey, and that's kind of their thing.
Yeah,
I just think they come out and they talk a little bit about the development. And, yeah, this was this, and we wanted to change some things, and while also cracking jokes.
Exactly what they did last year.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, because they've done that like 2 years in a row, I think now.
I mean,
so I could see them doing it like again.
You could see the same about South Park. It doesn't really the content in it changes, but it hasn't really changed animation styles. It hasn't really seemed like it's upgraded. So I think they're down with just repeating the same thing over and over again. Seems to work.
Because despite what you just said about all the games they talked about, and there were a bunch of new ones, and most of them all came out, and it's all great. If you guys remember, their conference last year was really long and drawn out.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Boring, despite all those cool games.
Garbage.
Yeah. As far as like the content they
as,
showed is good, but as the actual presentation is not very good. Yes.
As bad as EA was, EA didn't take up my whole fucking afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They spent way too much time on the VR stuff. Way too much time. Time.
And then don't be talking about no Assassin's Creed movie or any bullshit like that.
Yep.
Just talk about games.
So this is interesting because Ubisoft has like a very large library of IP they can go to, right? And we can just kind of like put our hand in a hat and pull out something that we think can come back or stuff like that. I think the one guarantee, and hopefully I'm not taking anybody's prediction, but I doubt I am. Last year they made it a big point to talk about the Division DLC expansion. I think they're going to do that with Wildlands. I think that's going to be a section that we don't know is in the show, but it's going to be in there. They're going to talk about the next big expansion for Ghost Recon Wildlands. I think that's going to be huge for them. Do you think that I guess this is a question that is on our minds, and if it's a prediction, you can let me know and we can't go any further into it. But do you think we're seeing the Rabbids game here, or are we seeing it at Nintendo?
Let me answer, because that's my prediction, actually. So I'll answer with my prediction. Why not?
Blessings falling out over there, man.
Sorry, every time I hear about it, I just start dying because that's the thing that shouldn't exist. But
you think about the Rabbids dressed up as Mario and Luigi.
Oh my god, it's hilarious.
Well,
man.
The worst part is when you hear the description. It's like it's going to be an RPG, and you're going to have Mario, Luigi, Princess Peach, and Toad, or whoever the fourth one is. And they're like, who are the other four characters? Oh, it's Rabbids dressed as Mario, Luigi, Princess Peach, and Toad. It's like
I hear
not other Mario characters, just the same ones they're standing next to.
So weird.
Oh shoot!
It is ridiculous.
It'll be at Ubisoft. I think it'll. I think it'll be here at Ubisoft. That's my
that's
prediction.
That's what I was gonna say too. I think this is at Ubisoft, just like I said with FIFA being at EA for the Switch. I think Ubisoft is gonna want a bite of this Switch hype, and they're gonna want to show this, as ridiculous as it is.
Well, think about that real quick. That means that we could possibly see. This is great for Nintendo. We could possibly see Bethesda taking a portion of their conference to talk about Skyrim on the Switch. We can see EA taking a portion of their conference to talk about FIFA on the Switch, and we can see Ubisoft taking a portion of their conference to talk about a new game on the Switch. Like
exactly.
That means that Nintendo could be at 3 other conferences in a big way. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's going to be good for them. I think they're going to be on the, on the cocky, the hubris side of this, where they're like, you know what? No, we don't need you at our conference.
Yeah.
You need us at yours, kind of thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like they're gonna reward Ubisoft for jumping on the train so early before it was even called Switch with NX and Just Dance.
Yep, exactly. So that was Dom's prediction of you expect this to be at the conference. Who wants to go next for your predictions for Ubisoft? Who wants to dive in?
I can go next because mine kind of piggybacks off that a bit. So like, I think I have two. I'm gonna go with one of them. Yeah, I'm gonna go with this one. I think they'll announce at least 3 games coming to the Switch specifically, at least. I think one of those games is gonna be Rabbids. I think another one will be Just Dance, and I think they'll announce a release date for Steep on Switch, but I'm not even including that. I think there will be one new one that we don't know about that'll be coming to Switch.
Okay, interesting. I mean, it makes sense because Ubisoft, I think, is, as much as we say their conference was boring, the presentation was awful, they're smart enough to understand the potential of the Switch, and they got on early, and I think, like Jordan said, I think that Nintendo's rewarding them for that, and Ubisoft has been one of the companies that's, like, down with giving Nintendo a chance, so I do appreciate them for doing that. So I think it's a good prediction. I think you're pretty rock solid on that. Jordan, do you want to go next, or do you want me to go next?
I can go. Okay. Did The Division come out at the beginning of last year or 2015?
February. Came out in February 2016.
Okay, so I
think
there's going to be a new...
Sorry to interrupt you. The only reason I know that is because it came out a week or two after we started the podcast. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I do remember that now that you mention it. So I think there's going to be a new Tom Clancy game, but I don't think it's going to be Division 2 because I think it's too soon for that, especially... they had Division, then they had all the expansions, and then Ghost Recon Wildlands. So I think
maybe some Advanced Warfare or
Rainbow Seven Siege,
or some of that. Yeah.
See, that's what I'm trying to think is they've changed up all their franchises because Rainbow Six used to be not Patriot, that was the canceled one, but it used to be Vegas. And then Ghost Recon, like you said, was Advanced Warfighter, and they totally changed that up. So I'm trying to figure out, like, are they going to do that with another one? Oh.
And War.
It's Splinter Cell. It's motherfucking Splinter
Cell.
Cell.
You're right. Yeah. You're right.
Good call.
Stealth games are hot. Splinter Cell Blacklist was really critically acclaimed, but I don't think sold super hot. But that was obviously last generation. Like, that's been quite a while. And I think you could make a really cool Splinter Cell game that's got like some deep RPG elements to it, and you're traversing the world like Hitman, and so I think it's about time.
I think it's a good call. Interesting thing, side note, and I don't think this. I'll explain this. So there was recent leaked screenshots of what's the lead character of Splinter Cell? I always forget his name.
Sam
Fisher.
Sam Fisher.
Tom Clancy.
So
Tom Clancy.
There was leaked screenshots of Sam Fisher in the Ghost Recon Wildlands world. Now, I do think that leads to there being DLC where there's like, because you can create a character, right? I do think it leads to there being a skin in Wildlands where you can use Sam Fisher, Blessing throwing me off. But I don't think that means it's dead for Splinter Cell. What I think is it's actually going to be a promo to where if you pre-order Splinter Cell, you get the skin in Wildlands. I think that's what's going to be the case. I think it's going to be like early adopter. You can buy the skin by itself, but you get it for free if you pre-order the new Splinter Cell game. I think that's what it is. Because it looked like a very legitimate screenshot, so I do think it exists. But I do think it's more than them just throwing in their IP into another IP. I think it's we're going to give you a reward for pre-ordering Splinter Cell. That's what I think it is. That's not my prediction, though. I was just wanting to throw that in to kind of add to your prediction of it being likely, right?
So also to add to my prediction, whether or not it gets unveiled this year, do we all think that there's a Splinter Cell game in development?
Yes. 100%. 100%.
Okay. Cool.
So this is my prediction. I just wanted to let Blessing know this, considering he was talking about the Switch having multiple Ubisoft games. One of my predictions for our Nintendo episode, Blessing, was that it was pretty bold. Ubisoft's going to announce the Ezio collection coming to Switch. I think since AC Origins, my thought process was AC Origins is too high level of a game as far as system power need, so that's not coming to Switch, right? But I think the way they kind of offset that is, hey, Switch owners, you're not getting AC Origins, but we're giving you the Ezio collection. Those are older games. They could definitely run on the Switch. They ran on the older generation, right, of 360 PS3, so I could definitely see them announcing that. That was my prediction for Nintendo.
But they're not going to say that, right?
No.
Origins, but
no.
Just like I think that makes sense too. Going back to that, just like the way they're getting Skyrim, right?
Yeah.
Which is an older game. Like, well, you're not going to get Fallout 4 or the next Bethesda RPG, but you get 2011 Skyrim.
Okay, so writing down my predictions. It's a prediction I have every year because there's one of my favorite franchises of games. I love the Trials games, right? Last year I predicted a new Trials game. I got it right, though it wasn't a full-fledged new Trials game. It was off of the Fusion engine. I'm not going to do that again because I think that's too predictable, and I don't think that's any fun. So my prediction is going to go a little bold here. I think they announced Child of Light 2, and it comes if it's either going to be an exclusive to Switch or it's going to come first to Switch. I think that they're going to have a partnership with Nintendo, and it's going to be the Raving Rabbids game coming out, and I think Child of Light 2, it's a UBR game. I think Nintendo Switch they're seeing a very large influx of these indie games, so I think that Child of Light 2 being announcing that it has priority on the Switch is going to be huge. So yeah, I think Child of Light 2, and there's going to be some kind of exclusivity with Nintendo, whether that be it only comes out on it. I don't think that's likely, but timed exclusive or exclusive content. I think there's going to be a partnership between Child of Light 2 being announced and Nintendo Switch. So
I think the only way Ubisoft does an exclusive is if it's like Nintendo licensed stuff. I think it'll comes first. But I feel like, the Ubi art thing is it seems like it's kind of on hiatus or up in the air. I don't know, man, because after they made those first couple games, Valiant Hearts and Child of Light, they just haven't done anything since. And clearly, I think they could have had something out by now. So I'm wondering about Ubi art.
Both of those games are some of my favorite games ever, and like they came out relatively close to each other. Yeah, I'm betting on that. I'm going pretty bold with it.
Love to see a Child of Light too.
I could have gone Trials, but like I said, it was a little bit too predictable. That closes out our show. We had a lot of really cool predictions for EA, Bethesda, and Ubisoft. Thank you again, Blessing, for joining us. If you can, let people know where they can find you.
Well, once again, thank you for having me on. It's been awesome. I'm glad I've been able to like talk about these conferences in a very chill way.
No problem.
You can also find me on okibeast.com. That's where I write and do podcasts and do videos. And if you want, you can find me on Twitter at Blessing Jr. And you can follow me there, where I talk about how great Too Fast Too Furious is. And I also talk about how like pineapple on pizza should be a sin. And what else did I do?
And
recently? I did something recently.
you also
I'm a sinner
say
then.
things like Batman versus Superman wasn't that bad, and then
Yes.
you get just crapped upon forever.
I did like
Batman
that
v
rant.
Superman
actually.
is bad. Yeah.
Or
Batman
no,
v
you
Superman
said it
is
was
bad.
you said it was that Ben
Batfleck.
Affleck wasn't that good in as Batman.
Hot
Yes,
takes.
I think he sucked.
Yeah.
But yeah, follow me for all of that good stuff. It's always very fun interacting with people on Twitter, and so I love it. Follow me, and we'll hang out.
Awesome. As always, you can find me at Jared _ on Twitter. Dom is at Dom's Oreos. Jordan is at Mellow Modus. Controlled Interest Twitter is at CTRLINT. Controlled Interest abbreviated. If you can, please give us a like and a review on iTunes. It really helps. If you can, also please subscribe to us on YouTube as well as Blessing's channel, OK Beast. Have you guys hit 100 subs yet, Blessing?
Yeah, we're like at 120 maybe.
Ooh,
we're
nice.
past 100 though.
Nice.
Yeah.
We're slowly climbing. We're at like, I think 89 or 90, and that custom URL helps, especially when you're promoting. So we're trying to get there. So we're not saying youtube.com/user/ and then a bunch of numbers.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you can subscribe, please. Even if you're not going to watch the YouTube videos and you just listen on iTunes, if you can go over and just click the subscribe button, it helps us with that custom URL. Thank you for listening to all of our E3 content. Hope you guys enjoy the shows this weekend, and hopefully we get some awesome announcements. All right, guys. Hopefully it's a year of dreams again for everybody.
Yeah.
And we'll see you guys next week, or the week after rather, sometime then. We'll go over the shows and what we think about it and stuff like that, and maybe we'll have guests back on to talk about what happened. But we'll see you guys next time.